is Friday, May 29th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another No Jiu-Jitsu Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday, hopefully to be ending very, very soon. Man, I don't know, I keep thinking about the whole social distancing protocols and all that bullshit. And I can tell you right now that I really think, I've been thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this, and I really think that these policy changes are specifically intended to cripple the U.S. economy. I know that sounds kind of conspiratorial, but, when you think about it, how exactly am I supposed to do social distancing if I'm doing jiu-jitsu? Oh, right, yeah. And so what about all of the money that was generated by my jiu-jitsu instructors at their dojo? When that stops coming in, and the excise taxes and the rental and all, and the property taxes, and all, when that stops flowing, exactly what is supposed to sustain the economy? I don't know. But I can tell you this, it's not going to look anything like anybody's planning. I really think that the transition into cryptocurrencies is going to be one of necessity for a lot of people, just as it was for me. I tend to undervalue my prescience and my vision a lot of times, because I tend to want to retain the ideal of hope and freedom, and do your thing, and not really have to worry about too many other people, as long as you're not doing something specifically to injure them. And I I think that will be the ruling etiquette going forward. That people are going to be reassessing their relationships that they have with others, and they're going to be saying to themselves, do I really want to keep these people in my social circle? Are these people contributing positive vibes, or are they putting forward harmful memes and stereotypes that I don't agree with, and I find personally costly? I think that when we do get around to evaluating things according to those terms, you're going to find out that a lot of this socialism shit, and a lot of this Marxism shit, and a lot of fascism shit, it is literally stuff that we tolerate only because we can afford to. And that going forward, we're going to find out that they're far more costly and dangerous to everybody involved and everybody not involved to continue to perpetuate on one another. Because the fact of the matter is that you still have to eat. You still have to have water. You still have to have electricity. And that shit isn't for free. Somebody has to drill the well. Somebody has to run a pipe. Somebody has to run some wire. Somebody has to process the wire. Somebody has to manufacture the wire just for it to be hung. Now, personally, I believe that what's been going on over the last, I want to say like 20, 30 years, has been this attempted cultural reprogramming, to where we can tolerate all kinds of stuff because our dependencies are fulfilled. We can get food and clothing and electricity and all. That's just, it's fulfilled. So, we don't have to worry about that shit. The problem is that's a very, very finite, limited realm of existence. And for people that are culturally geared towards freedom and personal expression and liberty to have that personal expression, it becomes really easy for them when they're in that environment that allows and fosters that expression to take for granted the fact that they can express in those ways. And so when they start talking about limiting freedom for other people, the last thing they envision is the possibility that their own freedoms, their own lifestyle that they happen to enjoy very much at the moment, is going to be impinged in the future and taxed in the future in ways that they simply weren't anticipating. And this happens every single fucking time. And I think it's because they start with the young people. The people that are trying to convince us that communism and socialism and Marxism are such fucking wonderful things, they're always older people, and they're always teaching it to younger people. And personally, I believe it's because the younger people don't have enough experience to properly judge what they're being told. And of course, they have parents that have been inured into this system of needing to work for somebody else who gets to tell you how to dress, how to wear your hair, what music to listen to, what to talk about in politics and religion, what's acceptable. And because of that, they don't speak out, and so they don't teach their children to speak out. And so shit that they would never morally or ethically or any countenance is happening in front of their eyes, and they're not entirely sure how to react to it. See, personally, I believe that all of these stimuli are a big mesh, and what it all comes down to is keeping the electricity going, keeping people clothed, keeping people fed, keeping roofs over the heads, right? And the system that's been doing that is in the middle of like falling apart, because the money that was supposed to be funding it hasn't been properly distributed for the last, 30, 40 fucking years. You got people slaving their asses off, creating billions of dollars worth of value for their company and for the CEO and the executive board, and getting nothing themselves. Well, that only has a limited shelf life that can continue, because after a while people start saying, I don't want to go work for you because I don't want you to tell me how to wear my hair. I don't want you to tell me what fucking religion to participate in. I don't want you to tell me what kind of politics to have. I don't want you to tell me what kind of fucking opinions to have or how I should feel about particular things. I don't want those things. And so the way I can avoid that is by not fucking working for you. You watch these shows about customizing vehicles and shit like that. Look at their employees. Those people don't wear fucking button-up shirts and ties and all. No, they don't. They are the people that, despite the fact that they're way more intelligent than any of the people wearing fucking suits and all that, because their politics and their personal preferences and what they like to do on the weekend and whatever were socially rejected by the people that wear suits. And the people that wear suits went about every possible way to make those people that maybe grew their hair a little bit too long or listened to heavy metal music or believed in some odd version of Christianity that they'd never even heard of, and said, you know what, I don't like this person because they're not like me. And because of that, I'm going to seek to get them removed. And I'm going to continue to adjust the knob up until they are not comfortable, and everything will be wonderful without them. Well, you got rid of them. And what have they been doing for the last decade or so? They've been getting rich making customized vehicles for people like you. So that people like you in your nice little suit can be comparing notes and say, oh, I got a better car than that guy. Oh, my custom car, my $300,000 customized vehicle, all carbon fiber, all of 1,500 pounds, 750 horsepower, blah, 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 is better than his. And see, these universalized fucking social standards of, social distancing and wear a mask and all that other shit, that's shit that they're trying to intrude or introduce on the corporate level to enforce mandates that they want at the state and national level, but they can't possibly pass through legislation because people like you and me won't fucking agree to it. I keep talking about a decoupling, and it's exactly these kind of forces that are going to propel this decoupling. And personally, I believe that we're going to get through this majority just fine. Because I'm watching Twitter and I'm watching the media that I'm seeing, and something occurred to me. And it occurred to me a long time ago, as a matter of fact. But it's this suspicion, this feeling has only gotten more over the time. Is that if I can simulate an event with nothing more than a cell phone and an intent group of individuals, what is the possibility that that's exactly what I'm watching? A simulation filmed with a cell phone camera, and maybe not even consisting of paid individuals, just people that happen to believe a certain thing and are willing to do what they're doing out of that belief. It's one of the bad things that we could see on the horizon of a surveillance society that's got cameras and microphones and everything, is that the reality of the situation is this. Despite the fact that all of your devices are recording everything that you're doing, they can still only see what you show them. Let me repeat that. They can only see what you show them. Keep that in mind. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And I can hear some body cam going on in the background, and that's typically what we start with. So that's exactly where we're going to start with today. And I'm feeling like I've noticed something, and you guys might have noticed this too. That there's like reports of rioting going on and stuff. And it's something else occurred to me. I'm thinking about this whole simulated reality kind of idea, right? Like say the reality behind that 3rd precinct police station was that the economic fuckface that we've been looking at for the last 3 months that has been covered up by COVID meant that the state had to realign their budget, and it penciled out that little precinct. And so rather than pay to have the place leveled, they said, "Hey kids, you want to make a film about blowing up a fucking police building?" And there you go. And the CNN gets on it, and now all of a sudden, oh man, it looks like the society's collapsing. Now what's really happening is they're demolishing that building because they can't afford the budget for the police that were there anymore. And rather than pay to have somebody level it, they're giving these kids the opportunity to have a little outlet, and plus give a political message all in one shot. I've watched 7, maybe 8 movies now that have the Millennium Falcon in it. Thing doesn't exist except for props and models. But I've seen movies of it shooting down TIE fighters and running into battle and all that. But it doesn't really exist. And as good as these video cameras are on our cell phones and whatnot, you got to wonder, what exactly am I seeing? Anyway, like I said, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. First Dance. I think this is appropriate. Institutionalized. First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Megadeth with Poisonous Shadows. And so, I'm a big fan of Gerald Celente, and I don't believe everything he says, and I don't believe all of the tags that he associates with things, but he's an in-depth thinker, and more importantly, he's about 80% right no matter what the fuck he's saying. I mean, really. The Trends Journal, if you're not familiar with it, you might want to at least check it out on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything to do that, and the stuff that you'll hear the man say is very insightful. He's got a very in-depth perspective when it comes to economics and global events. And I think that too many people discount the whole. Okay, there is a whole. All right, the planet is more or less a closed system, and I know that Not everybody is familiar with open and closed systems, but there really isn't a difference between the two, because when you evaluate it on a whole, the Earth itself is a closed system. And this pertains specifically to how we utilize the quote-unquote resources around us. See, personally, I believe that we should have gone to personal flight at least 3 decades ago. And I don't mean like flying around a drone that's flying you on autopilot. I mean, give me the stick, take the skies, independent flight. And I think that's where we're going to go anyway, honestly, because the regulatory burden for trying to keep us out of the sky, I think, is going to be too high pretty soon. And there's enough know-how out there that if all it does is utilize itself in the creation of food sources to at least get us through the short term, if not the mid-term, and possibly even the long term. We could be seeing the establishment of a whole new class of people that are capable of growing stuff, and far more capable of growing stuff than other people around them, putting that capability to work, and utilizing whatever space they have available to facilitate it. And I believe that necessity is coming really fucking soon. I mean, you only have to look back to the 80s and the proliferation of interest in computers and home computing specifically, but the lack of avenues for it to express itself. I'll give you an example. If the computer era had happened only a decade earlier, what would have been different is the level of federal government involvement and even state government involvement in the creation of the curriculum of high schools, middle schools, and so on. And what we would have ended up happening is having people that were born of how should I say this? The technical requirements that were necessitated by the Cold War era. And we're talking about a time when we were putting all kinds of brain power into developing things that would capture things video, capture audio on really low energy and high capacity. And I would argue that this is probably what really bolstered the home computing interest, was that these people were rotating out of these data center positions that they had held within the intelligence community, within the military community, within the state bureaucracy community. There's all kinds of data systems, all kinds of rack computers. If you look at any movies from the 60s and 70s, you see all these reel-to-reel machines. Those things were servers. I mean, not in the sense that they are today. I mean, they were moving around a lot less data at a lot slower rate. But the point being is that back then there was this high concentration on efficiency, because things like system resources were really, really low. I mean, a megabyte. Go back to the 70s and talk to somebody about a megabyte worth of storage space being available on a home device, a home desktop computer. They fucking laugh their ass off at you. They're like, that room would need to be 3,000 square feet, and to occupy this huge ass machine, because back then that's the dimensions of 1 megabyte worth of storage space. But that's all changed. I mean, if a device has under a gigabyte of storage, local storage on it, I'd be really fucking surprised. I mean, if anything being produced these days had anything under a gigabyte worth of local storage on it, I would laugh at it. But that's changing, okay? See, we're having this disruption with regard to our relationship with China and the shipping of goods from here to there. And that's having a big impact. Okay, I mean, like, honestly, I think we let it go way too far as it was, where a lot of our IP was getting assimilated into the Chinese systems. And you know what? They're looking out for their interests too, just like anybody else. But I think that we in the United States kind of misunderstood that relationship, and we're looking at the loss column and not really evaluating what we were seeing in the potential loss column in the proper light. And I think at this point we probably are, where those costs are a lot bigger than we had anticipated. You know, where you put the incentive over in a place where they're not really paying all that much money, and it's going to take them time to develop a stratification where the average labor is going to become so expensive that it's no longer profitable to do things with them, you know, to offshore everything. Well, you know, between regulatory constraints that have been put on shipping and trade tariffs and embargoes here and there, between all of that's just creating additional expense on shipping items. And I think that because the idea of air shipping or shipping things by air has not really been fleshed out. I think it has to some extent, but not on the scale of what I'm talking about or what I'm thinking about. I think that we are going to be using drones for a lot of things, but I think they're going to be not autonomous drones, that people are going to be piloting them for one thing, and that they're probably going to be facilitating person-to-person commerce. And I think that if you were to take something like a taxi service model, okay, and not even like an Uber model, well, maybe like an Uber model, where you have private drone owners and they serve as delivery flyers. And I'm giving somebody like a multi-billion-dollar fucking business idea. I hope you guys are fucking paying attention and taking notes and shit. But I mean, to some extent, we could probably make such a thing autonomous. But you know, I think that again is going to drive that evolutionary draw. It's like, you know, if that piece of plastic can fly, why can't I? Right? And I think that's going to change. But anyway, I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. I drove off a cliff right there. Well, I've been digging around, and I did dig around, and I found something that I think is of interest. And we've talked about this multiple times, the possibility of this. And as I kind of expected, one of the entities involved is Accenture. And that's because back in, I think it was like 2015, 2016, they developed what they called an editable blockchain. I mean, and that completely is like completely 180 degrees opposite of where we were trying to go with Bitcoin, where you can't actually go back and edit the blockchain. But these guys want an editable blockchain, so of course they go with Accenture. Anyway, I think people just mistake the value on this. Anyway, I got this PDF here, and it's supposedly 50 pages long, but I'm assuming that a lot of that is going to be references and whatnot. But we're going to dive into it just a little bit at least, because I'm curious, number one. So, you know, doing this show gives me a reason to actually read this shit. But number two, I'm curious as to how they envision pulling it off. And this is, where is it? I found this on the digitaldollarproject.org. And so, yeah, this is the PDF for it. And it was authored in May of 2020. So at least we're frequent to, or current, rather, to this month. whatever advantage that is, right? The Digital Dollar Project, exploring a U.S. CBDC. And for those who are not familiar, CBDC is Central Bank Digital Currency, i.e. a centralized shitcoin. Continuing on. And this is by, I'm assuming, the Digital Dollar Foundation and Accenture. We're not going to read the table of contents. We're just going to go for it. Here we go. The road to a U.S. digital dollar. What is the Digital Dollar Project? The Digital Dollar Project is a partnership between the Digital Dollar Foundation, a not-for-profit organization, and Accenture, a very for-profit organization, NYSE, and their ACN on that exchange. Anyway, continuing. To advance the exploration of a central bank, digital currency, CBDC, or a digital dollar. The purpose of the project is to encourage research and public discussion on the potential advantages of a tokenized dollar, convene private sector thought leaders and actors, and propose possible models to support the public sector as it considers development, testing, and adoption of a CBDC. The project seeks to advance the public interest by future-proofing the dollar for consumers and institutions across both domestic and global economies. Given the U.S. dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency and exploring of CBDC by other national governments and stakeholder organizations, the Digital Dollar Project sees piloting a U.S. digital dollar across a range of use cases as a critical and prudent initiative for the United States to begin now. The project views the infrastructure and underpinning the U.S. dollar as a critically important public good and believes that upgrading this infrastructure will provide current and future generations enhanced flexibility, optionality, stability, and prosperity. The U.S. Dollar Project supports the USD as the world's reserve currency, improves time and cost efficiencies, provides broader accessibility to central bank money and payments, and emulates features of physical cash in an increasingly digital world. Yeah, there's a whole lot of memetics pushing that whole bullshit. Let me tell you something. On day 2 of being without electricity, you will understand exactly how useful physical notes are. Continuing on. The Foundation has engaged Accenture as lead architect and technology innovation partner. Globally, Accenture's CBDC work includes engagements with the Bank of Canada, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, the European Central Bank, and most recently, Sweden's Riksbank. To gain diverse perspectives from key stakeholders, the Digital Dollar Project has formed an advisory group that includes a broad array of economists, business leaders, technologists, innovators, lawyers, academics, and consumer advocates. I don't see minors in there. The members range across the social and political spectrum. The advisory group has conducted several virtual meetings and provided thoughtful insight to the project, including to the content of this white paper. Going forward, the project will further explore design options, real-world pilots, and approaches for creating a digital dollar through a deliberative process that includes stakeholder meetings, roundtable discussions, and open forums. Introduction. Throughout its history, the United States has been a leader in innovation and building systems for the next generation. Whether launching the space program or building the internet, the U.S. technological initiatives are typically undertaken through a series of partnerships between the private and public sectors. These endeavors incorporate and reflect long-standing U.S. values of economic stability, technological innovation, individual liberty and privacy, free enterprise, and the rule of law. Yeah, whatever. I'm seeing a lot of rule of law out there. Bullshit. A new technological age is unfolding, bringing with it the digitalization of things of value that can be tokenized, programmable, and decentralized. Across the globe, governments and private entities are experimenting with tokenized commodities, contracts, legal titles, and most critically, commercial and central bank digital currencies. This wave of digital currency innovation is still gaining momentum. The questions for the United States are what role it will play in this innovation, and to what degree will its core values be brought to bear. Well, I can tell you right now, it won't be in the expression of a central bank digital currency. Continuing on. We believe the United States should take a leadership role in this new innovation. So do I. The launch of a tokenized digital dollar is a logical and critical next step to future-proof the dollar and enshrine its democratic values in the future of money. Who the fuck do these people think they're kidding? Continuing, successfully creating a digital dollar will be an enormous undertaking and should be done carefully, in a thoughtful and deliberative fashion. The crucial monetary and public policy imperatives of the public sector should combine with the know-how, ingenuity, and dynamism of the private sector. Yeah, you know what you do is you just get the fuck out of our way and let us do what we're going to do, and then we'll be prosperous. But you know, it doesn't seem like they want to do that, so we'll find out the hard way. While CBDC is a relatively new concept, no it isn't, we believe there is enough research and evidence to support a challenger approach. The project will explore the thesis that a tokenized US dollar will provide societal and economic benefits, but continue to identify challenges and the merits of alternative models. The project's champion model is a tokenized form of the US dollar that, quote, operates alongside existing monies, is primarily distributed through the existing two-tiered architecture of commercial banks and regulated money transmitters. 3. Is recorded on new transactional infrastructure, potentially informed by distributed ledger technology. While existing electronic payment mechanisms work on an account-based model, our champion model of a digital dollar differentiates itself through its nature as a token, combining cash-like properties with many of the benefits of the existing account-based payment mechanisms. This paper will flesh out the rationale for a tokenized digital dollar that would not only maintain the economic stability of today's US dollar, but also offer the potential for new market opportunities, broader accessibility, reduced costs, and increased efficiencies. My ass. To test our hypothesis and ensure tokenization solves real-world problems with anticipated benefits, the project will continually consider challenger models depicting alternative approaches to modernizing monetary and payments infrastructure. This can be done through a series of real-world pilots that explore application across retail, wholesale, and international use cases. It's called Bitcoin. And whether or not it was ever started as a government project is completely irrelevant at this point, as there have been a multitude of other initiatives that had absolutely nothing to do with the U.S. government, that were initiated by people in their garages and in their closets, pretty much how Bitcoin initially started. And so the idea that I'm going to require a government entity to provide the same for me is completely fucking silly. Anyway, continuing. The tenets of a digital dollar. The following characteristics are part of the digital dollar project's champion model: tokenization. A digital dollar will be a tokenized form of the US dollar. Third format of currency. A digital dollar will operate alongside existing fiat currency and commercial bank money. It will mirror many properties of physical money, including its ability to work alongside existing account-based systems. Maintenance of the two-tiered banking system. Got to keep those tiers. A digital dollar will be distributed through the existing two-tier architecture of the commercial banks and regulated intermediaries. Privacy. The digital dollar will support a balance between individual privacy rights and necessary compliance and regulatory processes decided upon by policymakers, and ultimately reflecting the jurisprudence around the Fourth Amendment. Meaning they're going to circumvent the Fourth Amendment by simply creating new architectures of quote-unquote truth and assumption, and just assume that you're fucking guilty. Continuing on. Monetary policy neutral. A digital dollar will not impact the Federal Reserve's ability to affect monetary policy and control inflation. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't even finish that one. Oh my god. A digital dollar will not impact the Federal Reserve's ability to affect monetary policy. and control inflation. A digital dollar could act as a new policy tool. Do it! Do it! Or we won't fucking earn your tokens. Got it? Technology decisions and design choices driven by functional needs. The policy and economic requirements of a digital dollar will inform both the underlying technology and the ultimate design choices. I have absolutely no idea what the fuck that means. Let's think about that a moment. Technology decisions and design choices driven by functional needs. Functional needs. Who determines what functional needs are? That's kind of like saying your job is not essential. It's essential to you, right? Anyway, continuing on. And so, yeah, the policy and economic resources of a digital dollar will inform both the underlying technology and ultimate design choices. No. You know what's going to determine that? The market. The same fucking thing that always does, regardless of what you say its function is actually doing. Continuing on. Future-proofing the architecture through flexibility. The chosen technological architecture will offer the flexibility to adapt configurability based upon policy and economic considerations. Again, you're assuming that you're going to have some fucking regulating entity that is going to be able to examine what they're seeing from the market in regard to stimuli and saying, okay, I'm going to operate according to the health of the market and myself. Unfortunately, the goals of the individual making these decisions, or even individuals, parties of, groups of, corporate bodies of, aren't necessarily in line with the rest of the planet, or even your country. Continuing on. Continued private sector innovation. A digital dollar will act as a catalyst for innovation and will not be antithetical to the development of private sector initiatives. Only if there is some sort of regulating body or law or whatnot demanding that we transact exclusively in it. See, that'll be the point where we have an issue. Because private initiatives will always be cheaper, will always be more private, will always be faster than this shit ever could be. So continuing on. Digital dollar for crisis relief. Okay, now that we've created an economic crisis by shutting down the economy, and actually I think it was just to cover the fact that there wasn't enough economic activity going on to continue justifying having the lights on in a lot of these places. Continuing on. The digital dollar for crisis relief. As this paper is being published, the United States, alongside with the rest of the world, has been struck with and partially immobilized by mayors and governors by the COVID-19 pandemic, which is a social event, by the way. As Washington, D.C. has formulated its emergency relief policy response in the face of the current crisis, it is set upon issuance of direct payments to individuals to offset lost wage income. This initiative has revealed persistent deficiencies and shortcomings in the effective distribution of monies. Hold on. The Federal Reserve assumes that they have the capability to properly disperse funds to the commercial and private banks out there, and that they know how to do that. Well, I'm sorry. The pandemic that we're experiencing has been a product of their fucking policies to begin with. And yet here they are saying the way out is to engage in this shit over here that we're doing. Continuing on. Let's see. As Washington, D.C. has formulated its emergency relief response in the face of the current crisis, it is set upon issuance of digital payments to individuals to offset lost wage income. This initiative has revealed persistent deficiencies and shortcomings in the effective distribution of monies. I don't understand how they can distribute fucking monies for decades to their banks and commercial and private banks, but now they need a new distribution method because I don't get it. I don't understand why they're suddenly having a problem dispersing monies. Continuing on. This initiative has revealed persistent deficiencies and shortcomings in effective distribution of monies, and an estimated 70 million Americans will need to wait a month or more to receive their direct payments via paper check, as the legacy infrastructure systems do not provide a more direct means of payment. That's because our privacy is our privacy, and that includes our business, which we conduct with what? U.S. dollars. Continuing on. We see yet another example with the sudden need for retired COBOL programmers to support legacy computer systems underpinning state unemployment benefit systems. The pandemic-induced crisis should be a call to action to renovate these long-neglected yet critical payment and financial infrastructure that are becoming increasingly outdated. A CBDC would dovetail nicely with other projects seeking to replace legacy technology infrastructures such as cloud computing, digital identity, and automation. Some proposals have been made for, quote, digital dollar, electronic cash payment infrastructures, to distribute electronic payments directly to consumers. Yeah, it's called fucking mining! These proposals, to date, appear to consider, quote, digital dollars in terms of benefits distribution functionality through accounts-based systems, and not as a form of tokenized CBDC. I know, with regard to mining, it's not an account-based system. CBDC explanation. Introduction to CBDC. You know what? We're going to pause right there. We're going to throw down to some music, and then we'll come back to this thing. And this is where we're going to pick up. We're on page 7 of this PDF out of 50. And like I said, from the appearances of it, it's this huge font, and there's not really much text per page. So I think we might actually be able to get through it in a ordinary show today. So we're going to do exactly that. And as far as where to go for music, I like this one. Lamb of God, Erase This, here on Coin Metal. And that was New Horizons. I think that was by Textures. My apologies. I think I picked that one out. It might have been the computer. Let me compare notes really quick here. Textures. Yeah, New Horizons. Okay. And so, let's get back into this digital dollar project business. And so, we were at page 7, CBDC Explanation, Introduction to CBDC. The Digital Dollar Project seeks to encourage the next major innovation in the U.S. currency, a tokenized digital dollar that has the same legal status as physical banknotes. This U.S. CBDC issued by the Federal Reserve System would enjoy the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, represent a third format of central bank money, and be fully fungible with Federal Reserve notes, banknotes or cash, and reserves. The fundamental benefits of this concept is that there is no better riskless settlement medium than the U.S. central bank money. Across retail, wholesale, and international payments, a tokenized digital dollar would provide a new payments infrastructure that complements and sits alongside existing infrastructures, offering optionality, reduced risk, increased efficiency, and, if desired, broader access to central bank money. This development would be a logical step forward given the increased digitization of human and economic activity. In this two-tiered banking system within the United States, the Federal Reserve issues banknotes for the general public and reserves for the banking system. Our proposed digital dollar would maintain the two-tiered distribution architecture. Commercial banks and potentially other regulated intermediaries with access to the Fed would exchange reserves for digital dollars to be distributed to end users, much in the same way they currently do when issuing physical cash to customers through ATMs. We further believe that the U.S. CBDC would serve to upgrade the infrastructure of money, the ultimate public good, and act as a catalyst for private sector and market innovation. We accordingly do not view a digital dollar as antithetical to the development of private sector payments and stablecoin initiatives, many of which seek to tokenize commercial bank money. Similar to today, private sector innovation will build on and around the public infrastructure underpinning the U.S. dollar. Let's see, interoperability. Interoperability in the context of this paper means that the digital dollar can function and coexist with current and future financial infrastructure systems, both domestically and abroad. The project will continue to engage with ongoing CBDC research studies and pilots around the world, encouraging the collective effort to achieve the financial infrastructure of the future. The project supports collaborative approaches, including sharing of learnings and best practices with trusted institutions such as Bank for International Settlement, International Monetary Fund, Bank of England, and Sweden's Riksbank, and others. Oh, hey, and here's a annotation that we didn't catch the first time. A stablecoin typically has two what? Components, the token itself, and then the value to which that token is pegged. A CBDC addresses the later component with its value represented as a liability of the Fed. However, a CBDC does not inherently include the business logic built into stablecoins. A key distinction between CBDC and tokenized bank money is that the former is a liability of the Fed, and the latter is a liability of the issuing commercial bank. That's really big. You know what they're doing right there? They're literally calling iFinex an issuing commercial bank, because they say here that a stablecoin is a liability of the issuing commercial bank. That, it's funny, this isn't legally binding at all. In with regard to the legal language or the legal definitions of these words. This is actually a product of a private think tank and Accenture, a private company. So it shouldn't be taken too seriously, or at least you should view it in that light. Continuing on, it gives us a nice little image of the two-tier distribution model of physical cash and tokenized digital dollars. The top section is the Federal Reserve System, and it goes from Treasury. The Treasury produces currency for the Fed, cash and digital dollars. The Federal Reserve distributes to financial institutions via cash, digital dollars, and it goes to commercial banks / regulated financial intermediaries. Let's see, the next one is physical reserves, and that's trade reserves for cash and digital dollars, and it does wholesale transactions between those two and commercial bank / regulated financial intermediaries on the other side. And so let's see, they got two streams of cash and digital dollars, and then digital dollars and cash, and then they go from physical wallet to individuals and on the cash side, to digital dollars going to the digital wallet on the individual, and then on the other side the retail transactions go from them to the digital wallet and the business and cash to store register. That's weird. Anyway, this diagram reflects the current U.S. two-tier distribution model of physical cash and hypothesized tokenized digital dollars to sit alongside it. Illustrative purposes only. I've said on this show multiple times that you cannot bind a physical thing, nor even a fiat currency, with a digital currency. A digital currency is the product of a digital process, specifically, and when I say that, I mean a cryptocurrency. And the digital process that we're talking about is called mining. Anyway, you can't combine these things. There are three separate forms of value for transfer. A physical gold bar cannot be emailed to you. A physical dollar, a banknote, cannot be emailed to you. However, you cannot physically possess a digital note. You don't have to physically mine a digital note. A digital note could be the product of an entry into a database, or it could be the product of the work of a network of public miners. Differentiating between these things is going to be determining their value to the market. And I can tell you this right now, that the premise that this illustration is trying to convey to you is they're basically trying to tell you that for every US dollar that's going to be in circulation, there's going to be even accounting for it against the reserves, as there will be for the digital dollars that are being issued by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve will be the issuer of both the cash and the digital dollars. Or at least according to this diagram. And honestly, I don't think the Fed wants that responsibility. They like managing one side of the equation that they can manipulate it. Anyway, continuing on. Enablement. Tokenization. Quote, tokenization is an essential term to define in order to understand why it is core to our proposed approach. Tokenization is the act of turning an asset, good, right, or currency into a representation with properties that suffice to attest to and transfer ownership. As an analogy to our current world, cash is a physical token. To verify the transaction, all you need to verify the authenticity of the bill, the token, and because each bill is unique, it is impossible to spend the same bill more than once at the same time. As a bearer instrument, the dollar bill cannot be physically held by two people simultaneously, i.e., when it leaves one person's hands, it is now in the counterparty's possession. This differs from account-based electronic money, which uses a reconciliation-intensive, message-based approach to adjust entries in a ledger. Tokenization can provide a new level of portability, efficiency, programmability, and accessibility, ensuring the tokenized digital dollar's ability to complement existing formats of money while simultaneously modernizing our payment and financial infrastructure. Yeah, it's going to tank the fucking economy. While electronic transfers of cash have been evolving for several decades, U.S. central bank money as legal currency has seen few, if any, innovations since the proliferation of banknotes during the 19th century. Its circulation has remained strictly local, and its functionalities limited. That's because that's all it needs to fucking do. The Digital Dollar Project's vision is a tokenized digital dollar that would serve as a new and more dynamic format of central bank money. The value case for tokenized digital dollar. The introduction of a tokenized digital dollar would be a driver of innovation for the broader financial system in a fundamental way. A tokenized digital dollar as a new financial medium combined with new transactional infrastructure such as distributed ledger technology would provide a new payment rail upon which central bank money can be sent and received. To meaningfully expand on existing capabilities, it should be portable, sent like a text, thereby allowing settlement irrespective of space and time. A tokenized digital dollar could play a crucial function in serving as the safest form of money and therefore offers value above and beyond existing currency mediums. Programmability is another feature that could unlock additional avenues for innovation and precision in value transfers, i.e., they could valuate your transactions on an individual exchange rate, meaning your dollars would no longer be valued as much as mine are in a transaction because you suck and I rule. And there you go. Continuing on, a tokenized digital dollar could enhance confidence, efficiency, and function. Oh yeah, really? Does that trait that I just announced to you, would that make you more confident in the payment medium that you were using if you knew that about it? That you could be discriminated on the approximate valuation of the coins on in your wallet versus other people around you? Would that make you very confident in the monetary value that you're carrying around? No. Efficiency and functionality in dollar payments across retail, wholesale, and international payment use cases. Yeah, you're going to fucking lose to Doge. Retail payments. Among the multitude of highly effective payment options in the U.S., ergo cash payment, credit, debit, etc., a digital dollar would offer a new choice for digital transactions, instantaneous peer-to-peer payments, and in-person transactions. It could also potentially lower costs and further diversify payment rails. No, it can't. Because you're wanting to keep everybody that's currently employed, i.e. bankers. And this system that you're talking about neutralizes the need for all of them from the U.S. Treasury all the way down. It could literally get rid of the Federal Reserve as an acting intermediary as well. Doesn't even need them. Just needs its own app. Anyway, continuing on. It could also potentially lower costs and further diversify payment rails. A digital dollar could be distributed to the end user through commercial banks and trusted payment intermediaries while facilitating financial inclusion by broadening access to services via additional mechanisms such as digital wallets. Yeah, see? Hey, U.S. Treasury, you could just circumvent all of this shit by taking Bitcoin's code, put FedCoin on it, and then start up your own IRC channel and start inviting people to it on Twitter and Facebook and shit. And just do some rains, just give them away. That's your distribution method. You don't even have to have a capped coin. Consider this, okay? Copy Dogecoin's fucking code, a capless coin. It's got a persistent fucking token reward at the end of every block. The block time is really low. The capacity for transactions is high. U.S. Treasury, if you did that, you could circumvent the Federal Reserve entirely, and Federal Reserve notes would be acknowledged for what they really are. IOUs issued by a private bank. And while they function just fine as money, and would continue to do so in the future, the requirement for them to persist in the future would probably go down. However, they would make for excellent commercial or industrial level token producers for the rest of us. I mean, they've got the infrastructure for it. But if you consider it like this, the coin, the monetary value, the currency that the Treasury itself deals in is not the US dollar as we receive it in our wallets. That's actually a Federal Reserve note. See, the U.S. Treasury transacts with the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve tokenizes it in the form of Federal Reserve notes that it issues out to the rest of us. So, if we're talking about who should be the issuer and whatnot, and who could best manage it and who could best regulate it, the U.S. Treasury would probably be the best entity to be managing all of that. We're talking about technology that streamlines shit, eliminates the need for a third-party intermediary. We could be transacting directly with the U.S. Treasury. You see, contemplate that. Okay, consider the perversion of interests that exists between the person on the street and the U.S. Treasury. I mean, we're talking about a number of barriers that are wonderful for regulation and monitoring and all that other business. But the problems that they introduce is that with each and every one of those, you have a different end user license agreement term. There are different terms in the agreement. Applies to different things. And each one of those people has restrictions for who you can spend money with, when you can spend money with them, what the available business hours are, so on and so forth. Now, if you contrast this with a purely public cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin or Litecoin or Monero or Verge, you start to see that the real differences between them is A, who's involved in managing them, B, how they are managed, and C, how they are distributed. And those things, those traits, are going to be what's going to determine what the market actually uses. And this digital dollar thing that we've been talking about during the entirety of this episode is yet another attempt, and it's no different than one put out by a 16-year-old to do some sort of regulatory and control governing shit by putting everybody on their same platform. And as I mentioned before, this is actually issued by two private entities working in concert to one another. So, and neither one of them was the U.S. Treasury or the Federal Reserve. So, I mean, they might have had advisement on legal basis and whatnot. But, I can see where this thing, in and of itself, would probably run into so much regulatory friction, due to laws on the books, that it would simply fail. Like, I said this multiple times on this show, that if you were to take the average commercial bank out there in New York, and you were to say to them, you have to start from point zero right now, based on the valuation, the current valuation of all the liquid and hard assets that you are marshaling, you are going to go down to zero in the number of licenses that you currently have. Regulatory wise, all the relationships that you currently have within banking, forget about them. They don't exist anymore. You have to work on the same playing field as everybody else, and you have to apply. You have to give us a $20,000 application fee, a non-refundable application fee, by the way. There's no guarantee that we're actually going to give you a license, and you have to be able to meet the regulatory burden that we intend to impose on you and your commerce. And the bit license, we're going to make you adhere and comply with bit license. The reporting requirements alone would bankrupt the U.S. Treasury. If the U.S. Treasury was applying for a bit license with the NYDFS to be able to use this tokenized digital dollar, they would not be able to pass muster. They're reporting the things that they would be reporting to the NYDFS would disqualify them for being for being a recipient of a bit license. And if not, it's because the head of the NYDFS made some sort of exceptions for the U.S. Treasury because they make the money. But yeah, they wouldn't be able to match the regulatory burden for the NYDFS. And again, we're talking about the U.S. Treasury here. I said that Facebook couldn't do it. Libra and Calibra they're trying to run away from it. Facebook is trying to disassociate themselves from Libra. Calibra, the issuing entity, the people that were supposed to be managing Libra, yeah, their project is now called Novi because they don't want to be the wallet for the wallet directly associated with it, with Facebook's coin Libra. And so that should tell you how nuclear hot all of this shit is. See, we don't have to face this in Bitcoin because we don't have a Federal Reserve, we don't have Accenture writing up fucking bullshit for us. We don't have the U.S. Treasury, supposedly providing collateral for us. We don't have any of that stuff. There is no need for transparency on that point because there is no need for them. I'm not trusting an entity when I'm doing a Bitcoin transaction. All I am trusting is that the fee that I'm associating with the transaction that I'm trying to make is significant enough for my transaction to actually be included in a block and put forward. And due to the expense of that and the lower likelihood of that, I have to transact in altcoins. But I've said this a million times on the show, and I'll continue to say it until I stop doing the show, probably, if that ever happens, that every single currency, every single one, has to go through this test every single day. We assume that our fiat currencies have already won it, which is why when you go to the store, everything is priced in your fiat currency. However, that's not the same everywhere, nor is it ever going to be. And this idea that we can winnow everybody down to a singular currency, especially going into the future, is fucking silly. Especially when a global network, a global peer-to-peer network, was possible in 2008 using hardware that was maybe 4 to 6 years old at the time that it was being used. And what that exemplifies to us is that it's very, very simple. It's very, very cheap to do. Your desktop that you're looking at right now could probably do it. The laptop that you're holding can probably do it. Maybe even the tablet or cell phone that you have can do it. And so when you think about it in those terms, if all you had to do was adjust the profitability on it, to where it was profitable to do it on a cell phone or a laptop or a device. And I think in the future that will be the case. Because what makes a currency worth anything is the size of the market where it is actually used as currency. That's the worth of any money. And what we're looking at right now is a winnowing down of the physical dollar market, but it's not being done through any legitimate ways. It's actually being forced on us via policy decisions. We're literally seeing the collapse of the physical economy around us, and it's being done through this shutdown. It's not being done because of COVID or anything like that. It's just being done because of the shutdown. It's a product of a policy change. See, I believe that what's going to happen is that instead of this policy change having the intended effect, that what's going on right now will kill in the mind of the average person the legitimacy of the control, the voice conveying to them these regulations and requirements being placed on them, and that when it comes time to them actually trying to enforce it, there just won't be enough will to support it. Not enough people will believe in it to actually execute and enforce the mandates. And I think we're already past that point, honestly. It's funny because they try and put some spin on the fact that police and fire departments aren't responding in Minneapolis. And I pointed out to at least one friend that I think that the reason is because they couldn't afford police and firemen 6 months ago, a year ago, because the physical economy had already slowed down enough to where the excise taxes and all that shit that they were using to sustain basic necessities like cops and whatnot just wasn't present. And I think that problem is going to continue to get worse too. But as I said, I believe that the reciprocal response of it isn't going to be a bunch of people waiting around for the Federal Reserve or somebody else to whip up a digital dollar and deploy it to everybody. And it's not going to sit around waiting for some fucking vaccine that may or may not ever appear. It's just going to start operating again, and out of absolute necessity. Because that's going to be the only way to put the money in the pocket that puts the food in the mouth, and the roof over the head, and the clothes on the back. It's a lot different when you view it from that perspective, Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And where to go. We played some of that. And I don't think that... You know what? There is a song down here that we haven't played yet, that I would like to. And when it comes down to it, I think that divisions such as like racism and religious differences and all that. You're talking about differences that we can even bother to acknowledge in times of prosperity. But in times when you're worrying about how am I going to get the money to get the food to the mouth and the clothes on the back and the roof over the head, you start realizing that those divisions don't really matter because you're all in the same war. And so here it is, Vola, the same war, here on Coin Metal. And that was Anthrax with End All Be All. And it is with that I'd like to bring this episode to a close. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I think we got enough time for a traditional 2-minute closeout song, and so that's what we're going to go with as soon as I can dredge it up here. And of course it's at the end of S. S-U. There we go, S-Y. And so here it is, Last Dance, System of a Down, Bounce. Last Dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent weekend. Good night.